Welcome back to my channel. This is the last part of this series. Hope you forgive me for not adding voiceover on the previous part. I am working on re-uploading the part again to have voiceover. For my dear followers from non-English speaking country. For now, let's begin. Taehyung felt tears prick his eyes. "I'm scared," he confessed. "What if this ruins everything? What if we try and it doesn't work and I lose both of you?" "You won't lose us," Jungkook promised, reaching up to cup Taehyung's face. "Whatever happens, however this goes, you will never lose us. We've waited 13 years to get you back. We're not going anywhere." "Never," Jugk agreed, his hand covering Jungkook's on Taehyung's cheek. "We're in this together. All three of us. For as long as you'll have us." Taehyung looked at their hands on his face, these two men surrounding him with warmth and desire and something that felt dangerously close to love. He thought about how he'd felt since coming back, safe, wanted, cherished, alive in a way he hadn't been in 13 years. "Okay," he whispered. "Okay, let's try this. Let's figure it out together." The smiles that broke across both twins' faces were brilliant, matching and beautiful, and so full of joy that Taehyung couldn't help but smile back. "Can we kiss you again?" Jungkook asked, already leaning in. "Please," Taehyung breathed. This time it was slower, more exploratory. Jungkook kissed him deeply, thoroughly, while Jugk's lips found Taehyung's neck, pressing kisses along the sensitive skin that made Taehyung gasp and tilt his head to give him better access. "You're so beautiful," Jugk murmured against his throat. "So perfect. I've dreamed about this." "Me too," Jungkook agreed, breaking the kiss only to trail his lips along Taehyung's jaw. "Every night for years." Taehyung was overwhelmed in the best way, sensation flooding through him as both twins lavished attention on him. Jungkook's hands were in his hair, Jugk's hands were sliding under his sweater to touch bare skin, and Taehyung felt like he might explode from the intensity of it all. "Wait," he gasped, pulling back slightly. "Wait, this is a lot. Can we slow down?" Both twins immediately stopped, pulling back to give him space, their expressions concerned. "Of course," Jungkook said quickly. "We're sorry. We're moving too fast." "We don't want to overwhelm you," Jugk added. "Tell us what you need." Taehyung took a shaky breath, trying to calm his racing heart. "I just need to process all this. This morning we were childhood friends reconnecting, and now what are we doing?" "Exploring," Jungkook suggested. "Learning each other. Taking it at whatever pace feels right." "And what feels right to you?" Jugk asked, his dark eyes intense but patient. "Right now, in this moment?" Taehyung thought about what he wanted. He looked at these two beautiful men who wanted him, who'd waited for him, who looked at him like he hung the moon and stars. "I want to stay here tonight," he said finally. Not for intimacy or anything. I'm not ready for that. But I want to sleep here with both of you. Like when we were kids and we'd have sleepovers. I just want to be close to you." "We can do that," Jungkook said softly, relief and tenderness in his expression. "We'll make up the guest room, or you can sleep in one of our beds." "Can I sleep between you?" Taehyung interrupted, blushing. "Is that weird? I just feel safe when you're both close." The twins exchanged glances and something passed between them, joy, possessiveness, love. Nothing about this is weird, Jugk said firmly. Come on. Let's get comfortable. They ended up in Jungkook's bedroom, which had the largest bed, a massive California king that could easily fit 3 people. Jungkook lent Taehyung some clothes to sleep in, soft sweatpants and an oversized t-shirt that smelled like him, like sandalwood and something uniquely Jungkook. Taehyung changed in the bathroom, staring at his reflection. His lips were still swollen from kissing, his eyes bright with excitement and nervousness. He looked different somehow. Happy. Wanted. When he emerged, both twins had changed into sleep clothes as well. Jungkook in similar sweatpants and a white tank top that showed off his toned arms, Jugk in black silk pajama pants and no shirt, his sculpted chest and abs on full display. Taehyung tried not to stare and failed miserably. They settled into bed with Taehyung in the middle, exactly where he wanted to be. The lights were dimmed, creating soft shadows, and for a while they just lay there, adjusting to the intimacy of sharing a bed. Can I ask you something? Taehyung said into the comfortable silence. Anything, Jungkook replied, turning on his side to face him. How long have you felt this way? About me? The twins were quiet for a moment, then Jugk spoke. Honestly, I think we've always felt something for you even when we were kids. It just wasn't romantic then. It was this deep connection, this need to protect you and be close to you. But as we got older, as we started understanding attraction and desire, we realized what we felt for you was more than friendship. I used to have dreams about you coming back, Jungkook admitted, his voice soft in the darkness. Dreams where you'd walk through the door and everything would fall into place. And when you actually did come back. When I saw you standing there looking so beautiful, it was like every dream I'd ever had was coming true. Taehyung turned to face Jungkook, their faces inches apart on the pillow. I dreamed about you both too. About coming home. About seeing you again. But I never imagined this. That you might want me the way I'm starting to want you. And how do you want us? Jugk asked, pressing closer to Taehyung's back, his arm draping over Taehyung's waist. Taehyung felt surrounded by them, cocooned in warmth and safety and desire. I don't fully know yet, he admitted. But I want to find out. I want to explore this, see where it goes. As long as you're both patient with me. I've never done any of this before. We'll be so patient, Jungkook promised, reaching up to stroke Taehyung's cheek. We'll go at your pace, whatever you need. And if you ever want to stop, if this doesn't feel right, you tell us, Jugk added, his breath warm against Taehyung's neck. Your comfort and happiness are the most important things. What about your parents? Taehyung asked suddenly. What about my parents? What do we tell people? We figure it out as we go, Jungkook said. Right now. Let's just focus on us. On figuring out what this is and what we want it to be. Taehyung nodded, feeling some of his anxiety ease. They were right. They didn't need to have all the answers immediately. They just needed to be honest with each other and take things one day at a time. Can you kiss me again? Taehyung asked softly, looking at Jungkook. Both of you? I want to get used to this. Jungkook's eyes darkened with desire, but he moved slowly, giving Taehyung time to change his mind. When their lips met, it was softer than before. More tender. Jungkook kissed him slowly, thoroughly, like he had all the time in the world to learn the shape of Taehyung's mouth. When they broke apart, Taehyung turned his head to find Jugk waiting, his dark eyes patient but hungry. Jugk's kiss was different again. More controlled but no less passionate, his hand coming up to thread through Taehyung's hair as he deepened the kiss gradually, letting Taehyung adjust to the intensity. They took turns kissing him, touching him. Nothing too bold, just hands on his face, his neck, his waist, learning the map of his body through clothing. Taehyung felt like he was drowning in sensation, in the newness of being desired by not one but two incredible men. "Is this okay?" Jungkook murmured, his hands sliding under Taehyung's shirt to rest on his bare stomach. "Yes," Taehyung breathed, arching slightly into the touch. "Yes, it's okay. Tell us if you want us to stop." Jugk reminded him, his lips finding that sensitive spot behind Taehyung's ear that made him shiver. But Taehyung didn't want them to stop. He wanted more of this, the kissing, the touching, the feeling of being surrounded by them. His hands grew bolder, exploring Jungkook's chest, then reaching back to thread his fingers through Jugk's hair. Time seemed to blur as they learned each other through kissing and careful touches. Taehyung lost track of who was kissing him when, whose hands were where, caring only about the sensation of being wanted, being cherished, being theirs. Eventually, exhaustion caught up with them. The kisses grew slower, lazier, until they were just holding each other, Taehyung safely cocooned between the twins. "Stay," Jungkook murmured sleepily. "Stay forever." "I'm not going anywhere," Taehyung promised, his eyes already drifting closed. "I'm exactly where I want to be." As sleep claimed him, surrounded by warmth and the steady breathing of the two men he was falling for, Taehyung felt something he hadn't felt in 13 years. He felt like he was home. Taehyung woke slowly, awareness returning in gentle waves. He was warm, almost too warm, and surrounded by the solid presence of two bodies. His eyes fluttered open to find himself still nestled between the twins, exactly where he'd fallen asleep. Jungkook was facing him, one arm draped over Taehyung's waist, his face peaceful in sleep, dark lashes fanning across his cheeks. Behind him, Jugk was pressed close to his back, his steady breathing tickling the nape of Taehyung's neck. Morning light filtered through the curtains, and Taehyung realized with a start that it was already past 8. His parents were probably worried. He'd sent them a text last night saying he was staying over, but still. He tried to shift without waking the twins, but the moment he moved, both sets of arms tightened around him possessively. "Don't go," Jungkook mumbled, his eyes still closed, pulling Taehyung closer. "Too early," Jugk agreed, his voice rough with sleep, pressing a lazy kiss to Taehyung's shoulder. "I need to at least use the bathroom," Taehyung said, laughing softly. "And probably let my parents know I'm alive." Reluctantly they released him and Taehyung slipped out of bed. He padded to the bathroom, taking care of his needs and splashing water on his face. When he looked in the mirror, his reflection showed a young man with messy bed hair, kiss-swollen lips, and eyes bright with happiness and lingering nervousness about what they'd started last night. After using some mouthwash he found in the cabinet, Taehyung emerged from the bathroom to find both twins awake, sitting up in bed, watching him with matching soft expressions. "Come back to bed," Jungkook pleaded, patting the space between them. "We should probably get up," Taehyung said, even as he found himself gravitating back toward them. "Your parents might wonder." Our parents are used to us having friends sleep over. Jugk interrupted, but there was something in his tone that suggested he knew this was different. Taehyung was about to respond when his phone buzzed. A text from his mother, having breakfast with the Johns. Come join us when you wake up. Love you. My mom is having breakfast with your parents, Taehyung said, a flutter of nervousness in his stomach. They want me to join them. The twins exchanged glances, some wordless communication passing between them. Okay, Jungkook said, throwing back the covers. Let's get presentable. 20 minutes later, all three of them were dressed. Taehyung back in his clothes from yesterday, though they were slightly rumpled from sleeping. The twins flanked him as they made their way down to the main house's breakfast room, and Taehyung couldn't help but notice how natural it felt to walk between them, to have their presence surrounding him. They could hear voices as they approached, the warm tones of their parents chatting and laughing over coffee. But the moment the three of them appeared in the doorway, the conversation stopped. Mrs. John's eyes immediately went to Taehyung, taking in his slightly disheveled appearance, his rumpled clothes, the way he was walking between her sons. Then her gaze shifted to Jungkook and Jugk, noting their protective postures, the way they were both hovering close to Taehyung. Mr. John set down his coffee cup slowly, his expression carefully neutral but his eyes sharp and assessing. Mrs. Kim's face lit up when she saw her son. Taehyung, did you have a good night? The boys took good care of you? Yes, Mom, Taehyung said, his cheeks flushing. It was great. Mr. Kim was watching the three young men with the same careful assessment as Mr. John, and Taehyung saw the moment understanding dawned in his father's eyes. His expression didn't change, but something shifted in the air. Come sit, Mrs. John said, her voice warm but with an undercurrent that suggested this wasn't just a casual breakfast invitation. We have plenty of food. They settled around the table, Taehyung between the twins again, which didn't go unnoticed by any of the parents. The breakfast spread was elaborate, but Taehyung found he had little appetite, his stomach tied in knots of anxiety. So, Mr. John began, his tone conversational but with steel underneath, you three spent the night together? Dad, Jungkook started, but his father held up a hand. I'm not accusing anyone of anything. I'm simply asking a question. His eyes moved to Taehyung. Taehyung, did you sleep in the guest room? Taehyung felt his face flame red. He couldn't lie, he'd never been good at it. But he also didn't know how to answer without making this infinitely more complicated. He slept in my room, Jungkook said firmly, his hand finding Taehyung's under the table, squeezing reassuringly. With both of us. The silence that followed was deafening. Mrs. Kim's eyes widened. Mr. Kim's jaw tightened. Mrs. John closed her eyes briefly as if gathering patience, while Mr. John's expression remained unreadable. I see, Mr. John finally said. And did anything happen? Nothing inappropriate, Jugk said quickly, his other hand also finding Taehyung's, so he was holding both their hands under the table, hidden from view but grounding. We just slept. Talk. That's all. But there's something going on. Mrs. John said softly, not a question. Isn't there? Something more than friendship. Taehyung felt like he might be sick from nervousness. This wasn't how he'd imagined this conversation going. He thought they'd have more time to figure things out privately before having to explain to their parents. Mrs. John, he began, his voice shaking slightly, let's move this conversation somewhere more private. Mr. Kim interrupted, his voice tight. This isn't a discussion for the breakfast table. They relocated to Mr. John's study, the same room where the twins had been lectured just 2 nights before. The parents sat in chairs facing the sofa where Taehyung sat between the twins, and Taehyung felt like he was on trial. All right, Mr. John said, his voice firm but not unkind. Someone needs to explain what's happening here. And I want the truth. The twins looked at each other, then at Taehyung, silently asking permission. Taehyung nodded slightly, his heart pounding. We have feelings for Taehyung, Jungkook said, his voice steady despite the tension in the room. Both of us. Romantic feelings. We've been honest with him about it. Jugk added. And we're trying to figure out what that means, what we want, together. Both of you, Mrs. Kim repeated, her voice faint. You both have feelings for my son? Yes, the twins confirmed in unison. Mr. Kim leaned forward, his eyes fixed on Taehyung. And you, son? How do you feel about this? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're being pressured by 2 very intense young men who you haven't seen in 13 years. I'm not being pressured, Taehyung said quickly, finding his voice. They've been nothing but respectful and patient with me. Taehyung, Mrs. John said gently, you just got back. You're still adjusting. These are your childhood friends and suddenly they're both pursuing you romantically? Don't you think that's a lot to process? Of course it's a lot to process, Taehyung admitted, his cheeks still flushed. But that doesn't mean my feelings aren't real. I'm not a child, Mrs. John. I'm 20 years old and I'm capable of knowing what I want. And what do you want? Mr. John asked directly, his eyes sharp. Because this situation is unconventional at best, problematic at worst. Taehyung felt the twins tense on either side of him, their hands gripping his tighter under the invisible shield of the sofa. He took a deep breath, gathering his courage. I want to explore this, he said, his voice growing stronger. I want to see where these feelings lead. With both of them. Mrs. Kim made a small sound of distress. Taehyung, sweetheart, do you understand what you're saying? A relationship with 2 people? That's not how things are done. Maybe not traditionally, Taehyung agreed, turning to look at his mother. But since when have I ever done things traditionally? I moved to America when I was 7. I studied art history when you wanted me to do business. I've always followed my heart, and my heart is telling me this is right. Your heart has known them for 2 days, Mr. Kim pointed out, frustration creeping into his voice. 2 days, Taehyung. How can you possibly know what you want? Because I've known them for 13 years, Taehyung countered, surprising himself with his conviction. Yes, we were separated, but the connection we had didn't disappear. It's still there. Maybe even stronger now. And I'm not saying I'm going to marry them tomorrow. I'm saying I want the chance to figure out what this is without everyone telling me it's wrong before we've even tried. We're not saying it's wrong, Mrs. John interjected carefully. We're saying it's complicated. What if you develop feelings for one but not the other? What if they start competing for your affection and it tears their relationship apart? What if society judges you all harshly for this unconventional arrangement? Those are all valid concerns, Jugk said, speaking up, and we've thought about them. But we're willing to work through complications if it means having Taehyung in our lives. We've already agreed that Taehyung's happiness comes first, Jungkook added. Doesn't work if someone gets hurt, we'll handle it together. We're not going to let this destroy our relationship with each other or with him. That's easy to say now, Mr. John said. Harder to maintain when emotions are involved. Maybe, Jugk conceded, but we have to try. Because the alternative, pretending we don't feel this way, isn't an option. Mr. Kim stood abruptly, pacing to the window. This is insane. My son just came home, and now he's talking about being in a relationship with two men simultaneously. How am I supposed to accept this? Taehyung stood up as well, his hands trembling but his voice steady. Dad, Mom, please listen to me. All eyes turned to him, and Taehyung felt the weight of the moment, the importance of what he was about to say. I know this seems sudden to you, he began, his eyes moving between his parents and the Johns. I know it seems unconventional and maybe even wrong. But I need you to understand something. I've been lonely for 13 years. His voice cracked slightly, and he saw his mother's expression soften. I had friends in New York, yes, but I never felt like I belonged. I never felt truly seen or understood. I never felt safe the way I feel with Jungkook and Jugk. They know me, the real me, in a way no one else ever has. And when I'm with them, I feel like I can finally breathe again. Sweetheart, Mrs. Kim began, but Taehyung shook his head. Let me finish, please. He took a shaky breath. I'm not saying I'm in love with them. Not yet. But I'm falling. I can feel it happening, and it doesn't feel wrong or strange or confused. Feels right. It feels like coming home after being lost for 13 years. He turned to look at the twins, who were watching him with expressions of awe and tenderness and something that looked a lot like love. Jungkook makes me feel cherished and beautiful. He looks at me like I'm art, like I'm something precious worth protecting. Jugk makes me feel safe and grounded. He looks at me like I'm his anchor, his home. And together. Taehyung's voice dropped to a whisper. Together they make me feel complete. He turned back to face the parents, specifically looking at Mr. and Mrs. John. Mrs. John, Mr. John, I know you're worried about your sons. I know you're concerned about all of us getting hurt. But I'm asking you, begging you, to give us a chance. To trust that we can navigate this together, carefully and thoughtfully. Mrs. John's eyes were shining with tears, and even Mr. John's stern expression had softened somewhat. And if it means that much to you, Taehyung continued, his heart pounding, would you talk to my parents? Help them understand? Because I love them and I respect them. The room fell silent, everyone processing Taehyung's impassioned speech. Finally, Mrs. John stood and walked over to him, pulling him into a gentle embrace. Oh, sweetheart, she murmured. You're braver than I gave you credit for. She pulled back, looking at her sons. And you too, you better take care of him. You better make sure he never regrets trusting you with his heart. We will, Jungkook promised, his voice thick with emotion. Always, Jugk added. Mr. John stood as well, exchanging a long look with Mr. Kim, who had turned back from the window. Some silent communication passed between the two men, years of friendship allowing them to understand each other without words. Miho, Mr. John said quietly. Shall we talk? Just the four of us parents? Mr. Kim nodded slowly. I think we need to. The next hour was tense. The three young men were sent to wait in the garden while the parents talked privately in the study. Taehyung paced nervously while the twins sat on the bench under the willow tree, watching him with worried expressions. Finally, they were called back inside. The four parents were sitting together, their expressions serious but not angry. Mrs. Kim's eyes were red, suggesting she'd been crying, but she managed a small smile when she saw her son. We're not going to pretend we're completely comfortable with this situation, Mr. Kim continued. It's unconventional and we're worried about how society will react, how this will affect all three of you. We're not saying yes without conditions, Mr. John added, his tone firm. We want regular check-ins with all three of you. We want to make sure everyone's feelings are being respected, that no one is being pressured or hurt. We can do that, Jugk said immediately. Whatever you need to feel comfortable. And, Mr. Kim said, his voice stern as he looked at the twins, if I find out you've hurt my son in any way emotionally or otherwise, you'll answer to me. Childhood friendship or not, business partnership or not. Understood. Understood, both twins said solemnly. Mrs. Kim stood and walked over to Taehyung, pulling him up into her arms. My baby, she whispered, holding him tight. You're growing up so fast. I just want you to be happy. I am happy, Mom, Taehyung said, his own eyes filling with tears. Happier than I've been in years. She pulled back, cupping his face. Then we'll support you. The next 6 months were a whirlwind of discovery, growth, and deepening feelings. The three of them navigated their unconventional relationship with care and communication, learning each other's boundaries, desires, and needs. And through it all, their love grew deeper, stronger, more certain. One evening, the twins asked Taehyung to dinner at an exclusive restaurant. Taehyung had thought it was just another date night, but when they led him to a private room overlooking the Han River, he found both sets of parents waiting, all dressed formally. What's going on? Taehyung asked, confused. Jungkook and Jugk exchanged glances, then both dropped to one knee in front of him. Taehyung's hands flew to his mouth, tears immediately springing to his eyes. Kim Taehyung, Jungkook began, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes, you came back into our lives like a miracle. You've made us complete in ways we never thought possible. You've taught us that love doesn't have to follow traditional rules to be real and true, Jugk continued. They each pulled out a small velvet box, opening them in unison to reveal matching platinum bands, simple but elegant, engraved with 3 interlocking circles. Will you marry us? They asked together. Will you let us spend the rest of our lives loving you, protecting you, cherishing you? Taehyung was crying openly now, nodding even before he could find his voice. Yes, he managed to choke out. Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. After wedding, they honeymooned at a private villa in Jeju Island, a secluded paradise with ocean views and complete privacy. The first 2 days were spent simply enjoying being together without the pressure of the wedding or other people's expectations. But on the third night, as they sat on the terrace watching the sunset, Taehyung felt a shift in the atmosphere. They all knew that they hadn't been truly intimate yet, that they'd been waiting for the right moment, for marriage, for when Taehyung felt completely ready, I want tonight to be the night, Taehyung said softly, breaking the comfortable silence. If you both still want that. Both twins turned to look at him, desire and tenderness warring in their expressions. Are you sure? Jugk asked. Always the more cautious one when it came to Taehyung's comfort. We don't have to rush anything. I'm sure, Taehyung said, standing and extending his hands to both of them. I want to be with you. Both of you. Completely. Once inside, Taehyung felt nervousness flutter in his stomach. He'd never done this before, had no idea what to expect, and the idea of being with both of them simultaneously was both exciting and terrifying. Jungkook seemed to sense his anxiety. He cupped Taehyung's face gently, making him meet his eyes. We're going to take care of you, he promised softly. We're going to go slow, and if at any point you want to stop, we stop. No questions, no pressure. Okay. Taehyung nodded, some of his nervousness easing at the reassurance. You're in control, Jugk added, moving to stand behind Taehyung, his hands resting gently on Taehyung's hips. Tell us what you want, what feels good, what doesn't. We're here for you, only you. They started slow, just kissing, familiar territory that helped Taehyung relax. Jungkook's lips moved against his tenderly while Jugk pressed soft kisses to his neck, his shoulders, the sensitive spot behind his ear that made Taehyung shiver. Gradually, clothes were removed, piece by piece, with reverent touches and whispered words of appreciation. You're so beautiful, Jungkook breathed, his eyes dark with desire but also with love. So perfect. Our husband, Jugk added, the possessive pride in his voice making Taehyung blush. All ours. They moved to the bed, Taehyung in the middle as always, and what followed was slow and careful and filled with so much love that Taehyung felt tears prick his eyes. When they finally joined together, first Jungkook so gentle and patient, then later Jugk equally careful, there was some discomfort for Taehyung. Some moments where he had to breathe through the newness of it all. But his husbands were attentive, stopping when he needed them to, adjusting positions, making sure his pleasure was prioritized above their own. I love you, Taehyung gasped at one point, overwhelmed by sensation and emotion. Both of you, I love you so much. We love you too, they replied in unison, their voices rough with emotion and desire. So much, Tae. So much. The night was long and beautiful and transformative. There were moments of passion, yes, but also moments of laughter when someone got tangled in the sheets, moments of tenderness when one of them would just hold Taehyung close and whisper how much he meant to them. Taehyung lay between his husbands, their arms wrapped around him protectively, and felt more complete than he ever had in his entire life. This was his family now. These were his people. This was his forever. And suddenly, Taehyung said something to his husbands made the twins shocked. I know we just got married, but do you know what I want? They shook their heads as no. Then Taehyung added, I want a baby from each one of you. Their eyes widened in surprise. Taehyung, baby, are you sure? Jungkook asked softly. Yes, I am sure, my love, Taehyung answered, smiling at his husband. Oh, that's easy, Jugk jumped on Taehyung, laughing. Give me the honor first, my love, Jugk said, teasing. Gladly, my hubby, Taehyung smiled happily. And that's how they planned to live happy, the three of them. They were planning on having babies. And to create a beautiful, bigger family. The end. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Thanks for watching.